Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Levant Vibes. I'm your host here, Diab, and today is all about can do attitude because I'm joined by the incredible Haya Dwaderi, a true force of nature. Haya is an older friend. She is Syrian-Dutch. She's a graduate from Columbia University. She worked in the oil industry in the UN, and now she's working in the sustainable mobility industry, leading public policy for Bolt. She's doing all of this while being a proud mom of two little beautiful kids, Liam and Aiden. Haya speaks seven languages. She lived in multiple countries. And you know what? She learned to ride her bike in her 30s. Who does that? Haya did. So, in this episode, we're going to talk about so many topics: growing up in Syria, pivoting careers, the power of networking, and, of course, work life balance. So, if you want to hear about any of these topics, or you just want to get a bit of inspiration and hear from someone bursting with energy and lots of wisdom, this is the episode for you. So, yeah, let's go. Hey, Haya, and welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ola. It's so good to be here and it's good to see you.
You too. So I want to start by asking you that both of us grew up in Syria. And for anyone listening, they might be wondering, how was that like? So how was that for you?
Growing up in Syria was really fun. I mean, if I have to choose one word to describe it, it would be really fun. I think that like from a quality of life perspective, it was quite a high quality of life. Like it was safe. There were a lot of services. It was very convenient. You have great food, great weather. It's kind of a dream destination in a way. Like for me, I really enjoyed growing up, and I think people are very warm. I generally believe it's the people that make the place, and people are very warm, so you are always really like feeling you're surrounded with a very close circle of friends and family. You're never lonely. I live in the Netherlands now for 13 years and I'm married to a Dutch guy. I have a Dutch family. So one thing is that as a foreigner arriving to the Netherlands, it was a huge contrast for me how actually difficult it is to, make friends and build really deep relationships. While I think in Syria, people
Mm,
immediately embrace you and welcome you. And I think it's just so easy to make friends and people really like to have fun and enjoy themselves. So I think we really enjoy life to the fullest, like to the maximum, and that is something that I think as a Syrian living abroad is very hard to recreate, right? Like you look for
mm,
that sort of fun and enjoyment and sort of life that we've had in Syria, and I think is really hard to find anywhere else. Like I think we are really enjoy food like no other. Like we really, I think that the food culture, we're very, I mean, I think
absolutely.
I could say it's like really we are very, there is a generosity to in the country in general.
Yes.
People are generous, and I think it's not just about being generous with money. It's more you're generous with your time, you're generous with you're generous with everything. So I think
With
that
your
kind of welcoming
emotions.
generosity with your
Yes.
emotions, you let people in. And I think
Mm,
that sort of like, I really believe like the quality of life at the end of the day is about the quality of the human connections we build. And I think
mm,
that quality of human connection you have in Syria is not so easy to create somewhere else. So I think that it's truly like a lovely country to grow up. I really miss it.
mm.
And I always try to recreate some of that sort of environment around me, but it's just not so easy. I mean, let alone in the Netherlands, it's a fantastic country with a lot of,
Mm,
it's interesting the contrast because it's a fantastic country. I identify as Dutch a lot of times. We could talk more about that. Um,
mm.
but like for me is like very interesting. The contrast is actually quite is very different. So
Yeah, I
it's
can
a very
imagine.
individualistic country versus like the more collaborative like people. You're always having dinner with other people. You give a lot of your time and a lot of yourself to other people versus how I live now, where I'm a lot more focused on my on preserving
Yeah.
my own time, which I think is like just so interesting to see how um people live differently. But in summary, like Syria, fantastic place to live, and yeah, very
And it
happy
was
that
very
we've.
safe. It was very safe for like young women like us, going around our days, trying to build connections, spend time. That's one of my like biggest things that I remember.
Yeah, No, definitely. I mean, it was super safe, to be honest. So I think
Mm,
Damascus was like one of the safest cities in the world
yes.
back in the days. So it was really safe to grow up there. I have never felt scared of like I used to go with you. We used to go clubbing, right?
Yes.
Come back home like late, and I never had to worry if if I'm safe or not. Like I think Damascus used to be a very safe place to be. I truly hope for the country that this place can, and I think people were doing well. Like there wasn't theft, there wasn't a lot of
Yes.
pickpocketing or those sort of issues that you hear about in other. This was unheard of for us. Like it
Mm.
didn't happen often at all, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people get surprised when I tell them I used to dance salsa. We used to go like partying. I think everyone's like, really? You used to do that? I'm like, yes. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions around these things as well.
Yeah, I think people really don't know what it is like unless they've
Mm,
been there themselves or, if they have maybe close friends. But I think there's a lot of misconception about the Middle East viewed as kind of a one unit, as this, part of the world that is
mm,
very conservative, that is, where women don't have a lot of rights, which is not true. I think a lot of the Middle East is actually opening up. And I think that even a lot of the Middle Eastern countries that, I travel a lot in the Middle East, I work in the Middle East. I think they're just fantastic places with a lot of
mm.
culture. And there is that sort of misconception where you think everywhere is the same, that it's a very conservative place, so I agree. I think people don't know a
Yeah.
lot about it.
So how do you feel growing up there shaped you? Because for me, I always I loved it, but I always felt like it's too small, and it was my dream to go somewhere else. What about you?
I, I think for me it was a bit different. It was my dream to study abroad, but I always
Mm,
wanted to come back. And I still remember I'm going to get emotional, but I did my graduation speech in Syria. And I said, we're going to go and get all these beautiful experiences and come back to build the country. So for me, I was quite a
mm,
nationalist in a way. I was very passionate about, building Syria and contributing.
mm,
But I, I think I feel different now because I
mm,
feel like it's going to take years and I don't think I'm ready to contribute as much yet, I guess.
mm,
But I think, like, for me, it was always like I will work abroad because indeed it was maybe too small to begin, but I thought I will come back as an investor and I will help rebuild the country. Or back
mm,
then, there was no war, so there wasn't rebuilding. It was more like modernize the country, modernize the country and improve
mm,
it further. So for me, I always kind of wanted to,
mm,
and I even remember my first job abroad was in Egypt. And I would be going every weekend to Syria because I just didn't want to, like, I
wow,
wanted to go back. And
mm,
when I went to Columbia University in New York to study, my first break was around the Christmas holidays, and I went to spend it home in Syria instead of like going for some really cool project somewhere in the Caribbean, which is like a very strange
mm,
choice. But I was actually very attached. And because of the war and everything that has happened,
mm,
that kind of changed for me.
mm,
Um, so I agree with you. I think a lot of Syrians go abroad to study, to pursue their
mm,
ambitions. But for me, it was like I will come back because I was just like so passionate about the country and it was
mm.
opening up back in the days, as you remember,
Yes.
maybe with private
Mm,
bankings, with some of the, economically was starting to open up.
yeah. Look, Syria has been through so much change, and for those of us who's grew up there and have connection there, I think it's quite personal. Now the Assad regime is no longer in power. So, how do you feel about what's happening today? What are your hopes? Do you have any concerns?
I'll be very honest with you. I don't follow closely the
Yeah, me,
developments in Syria.
me too.
I'll be very honest. I'll be very honest. I think that I am a very pragmatic person, and I think while
Mm,
growing up when I was younger, I was quite excited about the world and change and what could happen. Right now, I'm a little bit more pragmatic, and I think that this next stage is going to take like years. I would love
yeah.
to like invest in Syria. So I would like to, one day be an investor, maybe open a company. I
Mm,
don't think I will go back to live there in the next few
mm,
years. I mean, I think it's great that the country is right now in a better situation, but I think it will still take years to recover. I hope there will be ways to contribute into investing and rebuilding the
mm,
country because I think we still need, as a country, it still needs a lot of money and a lot of investment, a lot of foreign
mm,
support, and a lot of investment flowing into the country to rebuild. Like the Assad regime left, but they took also all of the money. And
Yeah.
it's not that there is a lot of, available resources today to rebuild the country. So I hope that there will be like more support, more expertise. I'm always very happy to like support in any way or form. So
Mm,
if there's any project or anything that someone approaches me and says, "Can we get your support?" I'll always be happy. I don't
mm.
think I'm at the stage where I think about like, moving my family, because I just don't think it would work out for me.
Yeah.
Maybe in the future. I haven't even visited for like 14 years, so I will be very
Yeah.
very honest with you. I am quite distant from the situation, and I follow the
Mm.
news, but like very sporadically.
Yeah, I think for me, like when everything happened, I just felt I'm like, I can now dream about taking my kids there to see
Yeah.
all
Yes.
Damascus, to see where I used to hang out, where I always
Yeah.
felt other people get to do it, not in Syria, but other parts of the world to bring their kids. So I
Yes.
think that's for me is like the biggest thing. Yes, we can. We also can go back and take our kids.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually fantastic, and I also feel the same. I feel like I can
Mm,
actually take my kids there, and I'm thinking about it, like just for a holiday. So at least we
yeah.
can, start with some holidays in
Yeah.
Syria. Yeah,
Let's organize the holiday together so we catch up there.
yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. I would love to.
Yeah, Haya, you have an incredible career. You worked in so many different industries, UN, all industry, now sustainable mobility. You've done so many changes, pivots, and I think looking at your journey, it just makes me so proud to see all of it. So uh, I just want to touch on this. Like, how did you do it? What inspired you to make all of these changes, shifts? How did you pivot?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I think it really all starts with a very good clarity in terms of what is it that you want to achieve. Because if you don't have that clarity, I think it's very hard to get there. So I think for me, like, I always was very clear in terms of what is it that I actually want to do next and what is it that I want to achieve. And I'm really good at like making it into smaller steps. And I think
Mm,
if I can give any advice to anyone in life, whatever it is that you achieve, don't focus on your goal, focus on the process, focus on the small steps that will get you there. Like I never sit and think, oh, this is my goal, this is my dream. I just think, okay, this is my goal, and then I'm immediately just very focused
mm,
on the process. I don't focus on so much what I'm trying to achieve. So let's say you want to, as an example, pivot
mm,
your career, then think for yourself, okay, first clarity, what is it what I want? Talk to people in the
mm,
field that you're considering, get some insights, and then once you've identified or narrowed down, this is more or less what I want to do, then just like focus on the process of talking to people or networking,
mm,
applying, being thinking how do you transfer your current skill to the new job that you want, and just don't take no for an answer, actually,
mm,
and be like fearless. I think so. For me, I pivoted from oil and gas. I
mm,
have, I think, two big pivots in my career. One was like I pivoted from oil and gas, from energy to sustainable mobility. And that was very hard because I pivoted from corporate to startup. It's not about
mm,
the industry, it's more like from corporate to startup. And in the startup world, there's a view that people that come from corporate are not very capable to move fast or do things. I mean,
mm.
I think like fast could be my middle name. Like I'm a very fast person,
I know
but there is
that.
that view that like corporate people are like slow, which is of course not. Like there are all sort
Mm,
of peoples that work in corporate, and also at Shell I had a very fast moving, fast paced job, and I was doing
mm,
quite a lot actually. So it's not that I had a but there is
mm,
that view. So when HR saw my CV, they actually didn't even consider it. So I remember the person that I reached out. I said, "Can we have a coffee? Like, I saw this position, and they're asking for expertise in the regions that I have quite a lot of expertise in, and I speak all the languages, and I have like I tick every box and beyond, I guess."
mm,
Um, so we went for a coffee, and then he was like, "Oh, like you're a perfect candidate for the job. Let me talk
mm,
to HR." And HR like, "Oh, but she works for Shell. We cannot recruit someone that works for Shell." I was like,
mm,
"Why not?" Right? So I do think that HR sometimes have this like very like mental. They have a list of, okay,
mm,
these are the companies we're going to target. So like I would always encourage people to reach out to the hiring manager or the person that's doing the job, or someone in that department, and
mm.
try to build that connection. And when you reach out, like I think also there is a magic in how you reach out.
Yeah.
Like don't be too pushy. I usually have a very brief message, very like light message, and just
Mm,
saying, "Hey, I'm Haya. I think I can add a lot of value here. Can we have a chat?" And then somehow people reply. um so I think networking, I don't, knowing what you
Mm,
want, and being ready, and being also realistic. Like sometimes pivoting takes several steps. Like maybe you have
mm,
to take a step back. Like when I pivoted, you could say that the position I took maybe was not as senior actually as my previous
mm,
role, and I was okay with that. um
mm,
then I, got promoted quite quickly. So I was saying two times, and then the second time I pivoted from just being policy expert to running a business and operations at a company, which was
mm.
exactly my dream job. It's exactly what I wanted. I was like,
Yes.
this was my dream job, to set everything up from scratch and expand the company globally and in Europe. Um, and there I really focused on marketing, like my experience, and
Mm,
where um my knowledge, my deep knowledge of the market. I think also when you pivot, sometimes in a career you have to, like, you can't change everything at once. Like you
mm,
cannot change the industry and the function, so I mean sometimes you can if you're lucky, but like most times you have to one you have to pick like a second realistic move, and be ready to but if you don't believe in it, like I think the mindset is
mm,
the most important. Like never limit yourself. Like in an interview, saying, I've had people interview
mm,
with me and they tell me, oh, I don't have any experience in this. I actually sold myself so much in the interview that I've had. I've actually created all the examples that are applicable to the industry I was applying for, and I showed how that skill would
mm,
actually apply. So talk about how your skills apply. Never say, oh, I don't have the experience or whatever. Say, I've done
mm.
this and that, and that's why I would be able to do like this very effectively.
Yeah. So if I want to summarize, it's clarity around where you want to go. Don't try to
Yeah,
change so many things at the same time. Have the confidence to reach out to the right people and be really short, sharp when you reach out to them and sell yourself. And it's not easy to sell
sell
yourself.
yourself. For
Sell
sure. Sell
yourself.
yourself. Yeah, and think about what have you done that is really, like, think about your story, right? Think about your achievements. Write them down. Have the
Mm,
examples. When you get that opportunity to talk to someone, to say, this is what I've achieved for my last company. This is what I've done. This is my track record. And I think
mm,
the most important thing is, like, always do your best at your current job, because if you do really well at every job you get, then you'll end up going in the direction you want, and you can always jump. Like if you're not doing good at your current job, it's very hard to explain while you'll do good at your next one. So I feel
yeah.
like in general you have to always do your best at what you're doing, so that also people can support you and give you good
Yes.
recommendations. And
Such
I
a
think
great advice.
focus
Such a
on the
great
process.
advice.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah, focus on the process. Like focus on talking to people. It's a game of numbers. Don't get discouraged ever, like that
mm,
if one person doesn't reply, like don't take it personally. I think networking um is something that, like, you really have to be like okay with rejection and never take it personally. Like sometimes people will reply, sometimes they won't, and that is completely fine. Like it's
So
okay.
what does networking look like to you? Because I think everyone thinks of networking, going to events and chatting to people, but I think there is a new way of networking. What does that look like to you?
I mean, networking. So there are like several ways to network. There are two things. So there's your current network, right? Your current
Mm,
network. So you are part of my current network. You work for IKEA, right? Currently.
yes.
So there you go. If anyone wants to, if I ever wanted to work for IKEA, I know I have all that. So
Mm,
I think in my brain, I have like everyone I know, and I kind of know more or less where they work. And I've done
mm.
it on a piece of paper when I was
Wow.
looking to pivot career. Yeah,
Mm.
I've done that. Like I've mapped everyone. So I was like, who did I go to school with? Who did I go dancing salsa with? Who did I, who do I know? Who do I know? And that is my current network. And I tend
Mm.
to keep very good, connections with people over the
Yes.
years. So I think those people are like, part of my network.
Mm.
I have some key people that are like friends that, we stay in touch.
Mm.
So I think keep your current network always live, because you don't want to be that person that like would only reach out to Ola when they want a job at IKEA. Like if I have not told you Happy New Year for 7 years, and then the first time I
Yes.
reach out to you is when I want something. So keep your current network live. And then in terms of like
Mm.
growing your network, I used a lot LinkedIn for growing my network, because I think
Yes.
LinkedIn is like a very effective tool. I think also industry events and these are also very effective. But like just cold reaching out to people, I think works, or finding like common connections sometimes, like I feel like you always will know somebody who knows somebody who knows
But it,
somebody, and don't be shy to ask. Like, I would actually look at like Ola's connections, second connections in LinkedIn, and if I find that there's a connection, I'd ask you for an introduction, or I will just, I'm very comfortable with also just like reaching out to people,
yeah,
and starting to build that connection with them. And not
like I
without
think.
an ask,
Mm,
without a specific ask, like without, I don't expect, like, I expect that I don't expect to get a job or get something out of it.
mm.
Is more like, I start to build it and think strategic, like you build your network today that you need 10 years from now. So it's not like it's not immediate.
Absolutely. And this is something I've heard somewhere that you can't just like meet a person and ask them for something. To your point, you just need to build those relationships to be able to get to a place where you can use that in the future if you need it. Such a great advice around like network. But also, I loved what you were talking about, like do good at your job, because I feel a lot of people, I think there is this, what they call it, like silent quitting, when they just go to work and they don't do the job, they're not happy, they're not performing. So everything falls into that. I think this is, yeah, such a great advice, Haya. So thanks for sharing. With all of these shifts and movement, have you ever doubted yourself? I'm doing the right step. Is this the right thing for me, or you were you clear on that direction?
No, of course I've doubted myself. Like a lot of
Mm.
times, I've doubted myself. Like in so many ways, I think I've doubted. Like, am I the right person for a job? Do I have? I've had this imposter syndrome. I don't have it anymore, but I've had it in the. No, I think you can ask me any job. I'll be like, great, I'll do it. Like, no problem. But it took me years to build that level of confidence, So of
Mm,
course I've doubted myself. I've doubted, am I doing the right shift? I felt stuck. I felt like I'm not sure what I'm
mm,
doing. I felt scared. Like, I do encourage people also to take risk early in your career, and also like working for a company is not the only option. Like maybe build your own company, be an entrepreneur. Like just take risk
mm,
and follow. Like I think the best thing to do is always try to add value. And so for me, when I like doubted myself, I just like reminded myself of all the value I'm adding. And that is my
mm,
kind of like the way I go about the imposter syndrome is I always try to build a lot of value in any job I have. And then whenever I
mm,
think, okay, am I doing a good job, I'm like, okay, but look at all those things I'm doing. So I always try to find like, how can I build value, how can I make money for the company, how can I improve things, and then I feel like, okay, I'm doing a good job. And that is the best thing against doubting yourself, is like focusing and doing well, I guess. But yeah, of course, the
absolutely.
career is like a roller coaster. It's not like very linear. I don't know
Mm,
if 10 years from now I will be working for Bolt or doing sustainable mobility. Like that's 10 years is a very long period of time. I love mobility, so I feel like I really found my passion. So if you ask me
mm.
today, I think I will be in the mobility and transport because I really love it. But like you never know, maybe I'll end up finding something else I want to do more. So um, I think
It
that the
keeps on
career
changing.
it keeps on changing, and it's not like linear. It's you find your way
Yeah.
as you go.
And the pace of like everything is just changing. The technology is evolving very quickly. So I think it's just hard to keep up. So moving from work and career to family, you have a very demanding job. I think you've been on like so many international trips just, and we are in March, the year has just started, and you're raising two beautiful kids. As a mother myself, I know how challenging this could be. So how do you manage it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like for me, I just really love my job and I love my kids. Like I love being a mom, but I also love my job. Like I don't feel ever that it's a
Mm,
choice. And I feel like, think of it, like if I were a man, that question would not even be on the table.
no.
If I were a man and I was traveling internationally for my job, no one would ask me, how are you leaving your kids? Like my dad traveled for work all the time, and it was just like part
Mm,
of like normal. Like my dad travels and come back. And as a kid, I never felt like he was not there for me just because he goes on a work trip. Like it was just like my dad is traveling, and that's it. That was the extent of it. I first want to talk about like two things, right? What I want and what my kids need, and the expectation from the society. So the
yes.
expectation from the society, there is a lot of like still judgment and expectation that a mother needs to be there all the time, which I don't think is the case. I have two very small kids, 3.5. Liam is 3.5, and Aiden is 1. And I have
Mm,
traveled a lot, but I have done it creatively. Like I breastfed Liam for a year and a half. I'm like very passionate
wow.
about breastfeeding. I'm very supportive of women breastfeeding. And I actually took him with me around the world. So Liam has
Mm,
traveled a lot in his first year. I think in his first year he's been to like 20 countries.
Oh,
um
wow.
so I always traveled with like either my husband would take the time off or we'd have a nanny that comes with us. So
Mm.
um we made it work. Like we made it work. I was like, I think I breastfed one time while I was in a journalist interview, because I saw that he needed milk, and I was like, sorry, I'm gonna like do this now. And the guy was like, are you sure? I was like, don't worry about it. So for me, it's like, okay, I pumped like all over the place. Like I think everyone has heard the voice of my pump, seen me breastfeed. Yeah, so for me, it's really about your approach to things. Like
Mm.
they're just children and they're just little humans that need
Mm.
milk, and there's no shame in it. Like there's no problem for me to step up out of a meeting room to bring some
Mm.
milk. So for me is okay.
Mm.
um in terms of like balancing, I really focus on the quality of the time I spend with my kids. Like when I'm with
Mm.
them, I'm really with them. And I think
Mm.
like weekends is like a very sacred time. I've also like learned to block my calendar for dinner
Mm.
time, which for me is like a big achievement that during dinner time I'm like with the kids.
Yeah.
Um, and it just means that I'm actually not going to do any work. I'm not going to be available on Slack. I'm not going to take any calls during the
Mm.
moment that we're having dinner. And I know that I like leave my phone, away, and then I'm fully there. I'm also in the morning, like dressing them up to go to daycare. And, so I spend like quality time during the day, in the
Mm.
morning, and, in the evening for dinner and bringing them to bed. But I'm like fully present. I'm not on Insta. I'm not calling. I'm
Mm.
fully there, and we spend like a good couple of hours a day. That's like quite a good amount of time, and then a lot of
Mm.
time in the weekend. So I think it's about that quality time when we go on holidays. It's like super quality. I feel good about it. Like I don't feel so guilty.
Because you're doing what you love at work, so when you get home you're excited to see your kids, you're not like
Yes.
frustrated or anything.
Yeah.
I feel like you have that satisfaction from both and you feel you're doing the best in both, and I think this is fantastic. And I think that's the thing, is they living with that guilt and trying to just to say, that's what I love and that's what I'm going to work with it. What about the expectations from the society, because that's something you wanted to touch on?
Yeah, the expectations from society, I feel like sometimes is judged by people
Mm.
because they think Haya did not take a long enough maternity leave, or Haya came back
Mm.
to work right away after she delivered. Like she didn't take a long time, which is true.
Mm.
I came back very, very quickly after Aiden. So I do get like sometimes people
Mm.
a little bit, maybe mama friends thinking, oh, don't you feel guilty? You're always, leaving the kids and this and that. But
Mm.
for me, it's like I know I'm a great mother and I can feel my kids' energy. So if I feel like now I have to like not travel next week because I've traveled too much, or I have to balance it out this way or that way, I know how to balance. I manage my work schedule. I know how to, have that kind of what they call work-life balance. And I don't think
Mm.
work-life balance is on a daily basis. Like
Mm.
there are days that I'm actually really consumed with something, and I'm not so available. But then I balance it out. Like I took last week of February fully off, and we went on this adventure week to zoos and places, and all of that. So
Nice.
um, I think it's a matter of really balancing it out. And I also like, as I told you, when I'm with them, I'm spending really quality time. Which is, I think, what's important is the quality is not just about being there and not really kind of being there. And my husband plays a huge role in it as well.
It takes a village, right? It takes a village,
It
yeah.
takes a village, so he's there, and we have a lot of support. So I think
Yeah,
it works
that's
out well.
awesome. That
Yeah.
that's great. I think you're a great mom. Haya, you taught your son how to speak Arabic. You told me, and your husband is Dutch. So massive achievement, I have to say, because I couldn't do it myself. So well done for for doing that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's like something that I'm like super proud of, because for a while I was thinking like I'm gonna give up. It was really hard actually.
Yes.
So I'm really like consistent with it, like very consistent, and I'm super proud that he speaks like three languages fluently. And yeah.
I have to say you inspired me to like be more consistent with my kids. So thank you for that. And I know you like you have inclined for learning languages, so probably he took a bit from you as well. So genetics.
Thank
So
you.
just I think if like to close off our conversation, I think it's so much fun to talk to you all the time, and I think we can drag this for so long. But maybe you can have it in another chat. But if you can have a conversation with your younger self, this young, full of energy, Haya, that is like from Syria, living in Syria, and you want to give her one piece of advice, knowing everything you've known and everything you've experienced, what would that be?
I think I have two pieces of advice for her.
Oh,
I think the
love it.
first one is to really take risks. Like I think I would encourage, like I think I had a stage in my life where I wanted to become an entrepreneur, I wanted to set up my own business, but I was a bit too scared, and I think I went for the
Mm,
comfort of a corporate job like Shell, quite a secure amount of money coming in every month.
mm,
Um if I can talk to my younger self, I mean, I'm very happy with all the choices I've made so far, but still, I would be like, take risks. Don't be scared of like, failure, whatever
mm,
it is, or no money, or whatever. Put it all on the line. Like, it's completely fine. And I think I really always encourage younger people to take a lot of risks. I still feel like at one point I'll have my own entrepreneurial journey because I don't think there's an
yes.
age limit on that. But I think taking risk is one thing that I would really encourage people to do and really follow their passion, because a lot of times people ask, I mean, my I have a stepdaughter. She's 12, and she's always asking me what career makes the most money. And young people think sometimes what career is good for money and this. And I'm like, no, just follow your heart and your passion. Do what you
Mm,
love. So think about how do I want to bring value in the world rather than thinking about what makes money, because the money is only a measure of value. If you're an
mm,
artist and you're painting paintings that are making so many people happy, and also there's no need to maximize. Like I think we grew up in a culture of a lot of like achievement, and this is
yeah.
in general the world we're living in, and I don't think there's a need for that pressure. I think it's okay to like just do what you love. And I think the second piece of advice is like not to care so much about what people think.
Mm,
um I mean, I think we grow up in a society where people's opinion really matter a lot.
mm,
And I think like I've done well in general in terms of like
I think so.
not caring about it. But I feel like if I could talk to my younger self, I maybe encourage her to get there faster, because
Mm.
people can think what they think is not so impactful. I think for you it's much more important to focus on your own passion and your own drive and what you want for your life.
Thank you so much, Haya. This was a great conversation, very inspiring. I always learn so much from you. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Ola. Nice talking to you.